My friends, imagine the most tense and complex scenario in modern geopolitical chess, an environment where parlor diplomacy meets the limits of physics and firepower. In the deep heart of the arid mountains of central Iran, a dark underground complex hides approximately 440 kilograms of uranium enriched to 60% purity. So you can have a clear idea of the danger this number represents. This level of enrichment is just a single short technical step away from creating a military-grade nuclear warhead. This complex is not a closely guarded secret unknown to the West. On the contrary, it has already been tracked, mapped, and even drilled into before. The Pentagon strategists, the pilots of the American B-2 Spirit stealth bombers, and the intelligence machine that selects the targets. For the current fleet and for the imminent and revolutionary 6th-generation bomber, the formidable B-21 Raider, they know exactly the coordinates, the precise depth of the tunnels, and the millimeter thickness of the rock that protects this fissile material. They are, at this very second, monitoring every square centimeter of dust moved from those mountains with the uninterrupted surgical assistance of the American Space Force satellites. And while this silent orbital surveillance is happening up above, here on the ground, the International Atomic Energy Agency is literally stationed right outside the Iranian borders. The international inspectors have their clipboards, their mass spectrometers, and all their measuring equipment, but they still haven't received an official invitation to enter. Is this the ultimate diplomatic humiliation? It's like being invited to the Grand Gala, putting on your best suit, and then the host disappears, simply slamming the heavy steel door in your face, leaving you out in the rain. But what you'll understand in our analysis today isn't just the bureaucratic standoff in suits and ties in Geneva. We are witnessing in real time the internal fracture and the desperation of a regime suffocated by sanctions and fear, where the different power factions within Tehran fiercely fight over the spoils of the economy, while an invisible bomber patiently hovers over their heads. And to understand the brutal gravity of this scenario, without being held hostage by the cheap hysteria that dominates television, we are going to apply our exclusive tactical metaphor for today's episode: the seismic audit. Yes, my friends, Iran, in its theocratic arrogance, thinks that it can hide its nuclear accounting under thousands of tons of earth using typical mafia bravado. But the United States has the only auditor on planet Earth capable of collecting this bill by shaking the entire mountain from the inside out. If diplomacy fails, if official documents lose their value, the seismic audit will come down from the sky without asking for permission. No one is talking about this with such clarity. But the smoke and mirrors game in Tehran is about to collide violently with the non-negotiable laws of ballistic physics. To read the smoke from this bonfire, we need to look closely at the last 24 hours of pure narrative madness unleashed by the Iranian state apparatus. But first, subscribe to the channel, turn on the notification bell, and like the video because it takes a lot of work to do this, my friends. The deputy foreign minister went to the microphones in front of cameras from the entire Arab world to declare in a mocking tone that any American claim about Iran having submissively accepted nuclear inspections by the international agency, it's a monumental farce. He called the agreement a mere illusion created by the story of the Western media and an arrogant power play by Washington. They state in no uncertain terms, defying the international community, that there is no inspection agreement sealed. There is no entry permission for the international agency agents, and there is no accepted timeline to dismantle the program. The shock doesn't stop there. Just a few hours after this diplomatic spectacle, the feared Navy of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard issued its own statement with a strong scent of gunpowder and threat. They warned that the safe passage of oil tankers in the Strait of Hormuz is only guaranteed on the routes unilaterally announced by themselves. Pay attention to this. They are trying, by forceful shouting, to reassert military control and sovereign customs authority over the most crucial and contested maritime route of the planet's economy. An incredibly narrow and vital strip of water that measures exactly 33 kilometers wide. Saying that anyone who sails outside these lines will be punished as an offending vessel is the classic and unmistakable language of an international cartel charging a toll from those who need to cross its territory. But does Iran have what it takes to sell? Or is all this just the empty rhetoric of a dog that barks loudly precisely because it knows its leash is very short and its owner is armed? The answer came tearing through social media the next morning. It was delivered by President Donald Trump himself. With his usual tactical coldness, he revealed what was happening behind the dark scenes of the negotiation. Far from the microphones and state propaganda, Iran's high command swallowed its pride and officially informed the United States that there is no toll in Hormuz. There is no extortionate insurance charge for oil tankers. And no mafia fee is being demanded in the Strait, which is exactly 33 kilometers wide. Trump set the limit of American tolerance. If Iran is lying or trying to play a double game, the negotiating table will turn immediately and the bombers will get the green light. And the most painful and humiliating part for the gigantic ego of the Ayatollahs came in the economic package. Not a single cent of blocked funds or cash was delivered to the Iranian regime. Full control of the billions of dollars remains frozen in the hands of Washington. The American government has determined that it will release only what is strictly necessary to ensure the purchase of corn, wheat, soybeans, and other essential supplies bought exclusively from American farmers and producers, as we had already announced. What we are witnessing on the streets of Tehran is not just a clash between the United States and the Islamic Republic. This is serious. We are witnessing a true cold civil war within the Iranian state itself. The regime is fractured. On one side, we have the regular army and the pragmatic negotiators who look at the country's numbers and desperately try to save the nation from irreversible economic collapse. And it's not for the people, it's for themselves, because if the people collapse, those in charge will be the ones left to deal with it. On the other side, we have the Revolutionary Guard, the true warlords, the owners of the industries, and the bosses of the material mafia. The Revolutionary Guard has always controlled the Strait of Hormuz through force and intimidation. They have enriched themselves by diverting incalculable fortunes from this global maritime traffic for decades. To demand that they simply give up this gigantic multi-billion-dollar slush fund in exchange for a peace agreement dictated by Americans. It's like peacefully asking a drug cartel to voluntarily hand over all its weapons and the keys to its safes. The recently signed Islamabad Memorandum, the historic document that was supposed to seal peace and end the war of attrition in the region, had been in effect for exactly 8 days. And in just 8 days of being in effect, the schizophrenic regime in Tehran was already publicly reneging on nuclear inspections and trying to retake mafia-like control of that 33-kilometer waterway. The ink on the diplomatic paper was barely dry. But the giant engines of the stealth bombers stationed at Whiteman Air Force Base in the heart of the United States are still hot and ready to take off on non-stop attack missions. In fact, the American Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, brought crucial intelligence data to the public. He openly confirmed that Washington is fully aware of this internal split and stated that there are more reasonable factions and negotiators within Iran with whom American diplomats are talking and trying to forge a way out. But it's a problem. You negotiate with one side and the other doesn't respect the agreement. You realize that everything is being done so that it really doesn't work out. That's the impression we get. But the efforts of this pragmatic wing are constantly sabotaged by the fanaticism of the radical wing of the Guard, which would rather see the country burn than lose their cartel privileges in the Gulf. The radioactive heart of this peace memorandum, the central clause of the entire agreement, was the inflexible Clause 8. This point explicitly required Iran to dilute and dismantle its dangerous stockpile of uranium. And here's the most important detail: under the direct, in-person visual supervision of the Atomic Energy Agency. And when we talk about Iran's nuclear structure, we're not talking about tents in the desert. The country's enrichment capability today relies on 3 main robust and fortified extremely modern facilities: Natanz, Fordow, and the mountain tunnels of Isfahan. You need to remember the brutality and the unprecedented violence of Operation Midnight Hammer. In that monumental attack that stopped the world in June 2025, the American Air Force demonstrated what its seismic audit actually means in practice. They sent multiple B-2 Spirits into enemy airspace. To penetrate the rock fortress, they didn't use conventional missiles. They dropped the monstrous GBU-57 bombs. Each of these warheads weighs 14 metric tons of pure forged steel. They don't explode on contact. They are designed around brute force physics to tear through dozens of meters of solid rock, slide through ventilation shafts, and pierce the final shield of reinforced concrete. And only then activate their super-resistant fuse. When the entire warhead is already settled inside the enemy's own cave, the explosion causes a catastrophic overpressure from the inside out, turning the cave into an implosive oven. The impact of multiple GBU-57s hitting the ground simultaneously in June 2025 was so violent that it altered the geological faults in the central region of Iran. They caused an authentic artificial earthquake, knocking the extremely delicate enrichment centrifuges off their precise rotational axis and destroying them instantly. And the American punishment against Natanz, Fordo, and Isfahan didn't stop there. A few months later, the massive package of air operations unleashed in February 2026 struck Iranian infrastructure like lightning, causing deep structural damage and completely paralyzing the regime's ability to manufacture and replace the parts for those advanced centrifuges. But then we reach the main flashpoint in the current geopolitical chess game. The dust from the attacks has settled. Silence hung over the rubble, and the question that determines the survival of the region remains: what was left in the ruins of Natanz, Fordo, and Isfahan? Can that radioactive dust be bagged, collected, and the uranium reconstituted by extremist scientists? And this is where the cat-and-mouse game reaches its highest level of tension. Because without the human inspectors from the international agency walking on the contaminated ground, the United States Space Force had to become the all-seeing eye. American military satellites have such frighteningly sharp resolution that they can map dump trucks and track any attempt. Any attempt by the Ayatollahs to transfer fissile material under the cover of night to bunkers that have not yet been declared. Iran tries to sell its population through loud rhetoric the heroic image that the Republic has not been brought to heel by the West. 72 hours after signing the Islamabad Memorandum and seeing the American diplomat Joy Vance act publicly. The highest and most rigorous level of inspection in modern history, the High Command of Tehran went on what used to be Twitter to hysterically deny everything. The head of the international agency himself, the mild-mannered diplomat Rafael Grossi, lost his patience. He joined the public discussion and stated that the inspection will take place. Yes, because it was stamped, agreed upon, and signed on the official document. The behavior of the Iranian state is bizarre. They sign a legal document. With one hand, it's a technical surrender, and with the other, they block the inspectors and try to forcibly regain control of the Strait of Hormuz. And these are Donald Trump's own words. Iran has never won a war, but it has also never lost a negotiation. The logistical and tactical challenge for Washington is enormous. The Isfahan complex is not an ordinary industrial warehouse. It is embedded deep within a mountain. Since the attacks of Operation Midnight Hammer and Epic Fury, commercial satellites have proven that Iran set up a frantic production line of trucks, dumping tons of earth, gravel, and concrete to try to cover up and further shield the access tunnels. Western intelligence bitterly estimates that most of those 440 kilos of uranium, almost ready to become a nuclear bomb, are still there, intact, waiting. But if the Ayatollahs believe that this extra layer of earth protects them from doomsday, the crews at Whiteman Base just laugh. The Pentagon's classified software that plans the bombings mathematically calculates even the type of soil in the mountain. And in case you didn't know, here's a lethal pun from American military engineering. Each B-2 Spirit stealth bomber carries exactly 2 very peculiar inspectors in its belly. That's right. Each B-2 flight carries 2 GBU-57 bombs weighing 14 metric tons each simultaneously. It's the inspection visit that doesn't stop at the gate to ask for permission. Iran didn't just stand by and watch its mountains crumble. They had months to readjust. Intelligence reports based on testimony from pilots who survived recent incursions, like the famous F-15 crash report encounters with colossal swarms of interconnected drones in the Iranian sky. The overwhelming suspicion is that cargo ships loaded with Chinese and Russian technology secretly unloaded entire state-of-the-art aerial jamming equipment. And there are dark rumors in the espionage community indicating that the surviving uranium from Isfahan may be slowly relocated to a mountain fortress that has not yet been fully mapped. The so-called Pickaxe Mountain, which descends a frightening 90 meters deep into the Earth's crust. Before the first missile exploded in the Middle East, intelligence agencies were certain that Iran was only weeks or months away from completing a nuclear warhead. After the brutal steel clash of Operation Midnight Hammer in June 2025 and Operation Epic Fury now, in February 2026, the timeline has been pushed back. The prestigious Institute for Science and International Security now estimates that Iran would need more than a year, even in a perfect environment, just to rebuild its operational centrifuge base. Well, more than a year is everything for President Trump, who has a deadline to finish his term. Do you understand the danger now? The bombs, without a doubt, have set back the doomsday clock in the region. But the analytical honesty that guides our work here requires that the truth be told. The radioactive dust is still there. As long as the inspectors don't get their hands on the complex, the threat remains alive beneath the rock. In other words, my friends, one of the problems that started the operations was the Iranian nuclear program. And it's still there. It needs to be brought to an end, either peacefully through an agreement or by force in a destruction operation, and recovering from that, which would be extremely complicated to do. And I've already talked about this in a video that I'll leave in the card for you, what it would be like if this operation happened earlier. Now pay attention, because the Western war machine operates at a speed that Asian dictatorships can't process. Just look at the theater of operations in outer space, because we witnessed something absolutely spectacular this week. The United States Space Force gave a direct launch order to the private company Rocket Lab. And in an absurdly short 16 hours and 42 minutes since the phone call, they shattered the previous emergency launch record by an embarrassing margin, beating it by more than 10 hours. Rocket Lab got the rocket ready. They prepared the payload and launched the Hunter spacecraft called Pioneer directly into low Earth orbit. This pioneering orbital machine carried out rendezvous maneuver operations, simulating with millimeter precision the physical and electronic destruction of a moving enemy satellite. The war in the stars has begun. It was a clear, brilliant, and humiliating message, one that was left for the strategic command of Beijing's armed forces. Astonished by the speed of American logistical infrastructure, they proved they can put a satellite killer into outer space between breakfast and dinner, and simultaneously, without hesitation, while the world was watching the satellites and Iran. CENTCOM was launching a series of surgical strikes on the ground, decapitation attacks against senior leaders of the Islamic State. ISIS terrorists were pathetically trying to exploit the security vacuum after Assad in the eastern region of Syria to rise from the ashes. And they were brutally silenced by American drones, the messages flashing in neon lights on the global dashboard. The Pentagon's ability to strike at multiple points, simultaneous fronts, from the silent vacuum of low Earth orbit to the scorching dust of the Syrian desert. It remains absurdly lethal. We are witnessing the closing of the greatest and most sophisticated theater of diplomatic illusions of our time. Iran is forced to sign humiliating nuclear concessions behind closed doors because their country went bankrupt, their currency melted away, and their infrastructure was bombed. But outside those doors, the radicals of the Revolutionary Guard, they display a false, uncompromising alpha male posture. They desperately try to shield the regime against the revolt of their own starving population, and against the mutiny of the more radical generals who get their money from the Strait of Hormuz. Now I want to hear from you. Who is part of those who understand the reading of this board? Do you believe that Washington's strategic patience will last on the tightrope of the Swiss negotiation table? Or has diplomacy become a useless waste of time? And the seismic audit of the B2 spirit? Will it have to be activated once again to shake the mountains of Isfahan? Your position matters to validate our reading. Go down right now to the comments section and type in big capital letters, our elite analytical verdict, Seismic Audit. I repeat, take your tactical position on the board and write Seismic Audit. If you think the conversation is over, but if you think we should negotiate until the end, for as long as possible, write negotiation. And pay close attention now because this is important. Just as major powers suffer the silent wear and tear of not knowing how to position themselves, many professionals today suffer from their own digital atrophy. Every day you ask me the same question. How did I reach the level where my channels get 50 million views a month? I build an unquestionable authority, the kind that sets the market trends, and I earn in dollars here on YouTube. The cold answer is what separates amateurs from those who master the game. You have technical knowledge. Extremely valuable, but you remain invisible on the internet because you lack a validated method for retention and positioning here. The internet doesn't reward a silent resume in the drawer. It rewards those who know how. Anchoring the audience's attention and forging authority. That's why on July 12th in Curitiba, I'll be holding an exclusive in-person workshop. There will be exactly 10 in-person spots inside a professional studio where I'll reveal the mechanics of my method and teach you my maximum retention script hands-on. The QR code is on your screen right now. Type "I want" in the comments right now and secure your VIP access before the 10th steel door closes. Improve your communication and build your authority in the market. Look, the link is in the description and in the first pinned comment. I'll be waiting for you here to learn how to communicate and reach thousands of people every day, just like I do on social media, here on YouTube, and monetized in dollars, which is the most interesting part. My friends, look, we created a solution for your life. You're not that guy or that lady, miss, who wastes time looking for something cool to watch on Netflix, on Amazon. I used to be one of those people. Better. I still do that for you. But the difference is that we created a channel about series and movies with tips on what to watch on the weekend. Shimao, what's cool? What are you watching? What are the best movies and series right now, guys? We listed everything. Everything for you on our channel. So, link in the description, in the pinned comment, and in the card. That will appear on your screen. Now, subscribe to the channel, turn on the notification bell, leave a like on the video because it takes work to make. Shield your mind. I'm Shimao Oliveira and I'll see you in the next video. See you then.